So today we will be discussing about the finite element formulation of linear elastic problems in 2 dimension. So first of all we will recapitulate some of the basics in solid mechanics, okay, that will be used in these formulations. Then we will define the boundary value problem for the problem that we are going to solve. Next we will discuss how these governing differential equations, in this case the partial differential equations, will be used. Okay. First it will be taken to the weak form, okay, and then we will discretize the domain and substitute the field variable as a linear combination of the basis functions, following which we will get the set of linear algebraic equations, and then we will substitute the or enforce the boundary conditions, alright. Then we will solve the system of equations and finally we will see the results. So let us go and look at some of the basics, okay. First we will be discussing about the strain displacement relation, okay. As it says, it is basically the relation between the displacement in a given domain and the associated strain. So here I have shown a small element ABCD, material element, okay. Initially the sides are perpendicular to each other, okay. So this is the initial configuration of the material element, and because of the forces and maybe the external applied forces and the reaction forces, the material has deformed. As a result, this element has also deformed and acquired the configuration as shown by A dashed, B dashed, C dashed, D dashed. So A, B, C, D is the initial configuration, and after deformation we get A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Alright. Now the points A has moved to A prime, B has moved to B prime, C has moved to C prime, and so is D. So these displacements are shown by the vector u bar, right, as you can see here. So the displacements are shown in this case by the vector u bar. So u bar, okay, which is a function of x and y, okay, this denotes the displacement of the point A, alright. Why? Because the initial configuration, the coordinate of A is x comma y, alright. So the displacement of A is denoted by u bar, okay. So it has two components along x and y, so that is ux and uy, and each of them will be a function of x and y, alright. Similarly, B has moved to B prime. Now since the initial condition, at the initial condition the coordinate of B is x plus delta x comma y, so the displacement of B to B prime is denoted by u bar x plus delta x comma y. So similarly we have denoted the displacement of point C and the displacement of point D, alright. Now as we have learned in the solid mechanics, the change in length of AB, which is initially along the x axis, okay, upon the initial length AB, that basically defines the longitudinal strain along x direction. So here we are talking about small deformation case, okay. So the rotation is negligible, so the displacements are small, alright. So here, so epsilon xx we get del ux del x, okay. How we can get? We can actually identify how much is the change in length of AB to A prime B prime, and that we will see as the difference between u bar at x plus delta x, okay, particularly ux at x plus delta x comma y minus ux at x comma y. So the difference divided by the initial length, that is delta x. As delta x approaches 0, so we will get epsilon xx will be del u del x. Alright. So similarly, the longitudinal strain or normal strain along y direction, that will obtained from the change in length of the side AD as epsilon yy, that is del uy del y. Alright. So remember, u has two components, ux and uy. So ux denotes the displacement along x direction, uy denotes the displacement of a given point in the y direction. Alright. Now finally, the change in the angle. So initially the AB and AD, the sides are initially at 90 degree, okay, they were perpendicular to each other. Now after deformation they have achieved an angle, that is B prime, A prime, D prime. So the change in angle, that is denoted by alpha 1 and alpha 2, okay. The sum of that denotes the shear strain. So del uy del x, that denotes alpha 1, del ux del y, that denotes alpha 2. So half of this denotes the shear strain epsilon xy. So this we have learned in solid mechanics. Alright. So now these three strain components, okay, we have written in a column vector, okay, by substituting gamma xy as twice of epsilon x comma y. Alright. So gamma xy, we all know, this is called engineering shear strain. So this is called engineering shear strain. So the gamma xy is 2 times epsilon xy. So this strain vector, okay, containing these three components, epsilon xx, epsilon yy and gamma xy, that we are denoting by epsilon bar. Alright. So I can write epsilon bar is equal to epsilon xx, epsilon yy, gamma xy. Alright. Now these three set of relations we can express as this. Alright. So look at this matrix containing the partial derivative. So the operators, corresponding operators. So if I look at the first row times this column vector, so we get del ux del x. So that is what is epsilon xx. Similarly, the second row gives us del uy del y. So that is what is epsilon yy, and the third row gives us del ux del y plus del uy del x. So that is gamma xy, because that is twice of epsilon xy. Alright. So this matrix, so this operator I can say we denote as the symmetric gradient. So just note that this is not the gradient operator, this is particular arrangements of the partial derivatives, okay. This we are terming as symmetric gradient, because that results in a symmetric strain tensor. Alright. So this is symmetric gradient, okay, denoted by this suffix s. So del s into u bar. So this vector we are denoting as u bar. Alright. So finally we are getting this relation, epsilon bar is equal to del s u bar. So strain has 3 components, displacement has 2 components, and the symmetric gradient operator looks like this. Fine. So now let us go ahead and look at the equilibrium part. So here I have considered an arbitrary shaped body in the xy plane, alright, where there are some external force may be acting, okay, here and there, and at some point it is fixed, alright, it can't move, okay. So it is constrained at some portion of the boundary. So under these forces and reaction forces, the body is undergoing some deformation, and because of its inherent property it is resisting, okay, to against the deformation. So internal stresses are getting generated. So we are considering at a point x comma y a small element of length dx, delta x and delta y along x and y direction, okay, and that we have exaggerated here. Alright. Now in addition to these external forces, this body is also subjected to some body force. Body force is something that is uniformly acting throughout the body. Alright, it is acting in all parts of the body. It may not be uniform, but it is acting in all parts of the body. Alright, so in this case you can say the B is defined as the force per unit area. Alright, so it is acting at every point on the body. So if you multiply it with the corresponding area, we will get the body force acting at a given point. So this elemental area is also filling that body force. Now this body force vector has two components. Along x axis it is Bx and along y axis it is By. Alright. So now this elemental area, okay, what we are doing, we have represented all the stresses acting on this, particularly those which are keeping this material element in equilibrium in the xy plane. Alright. And so here if you see, so this is the stress that is acting in the x direction on the x plane. Let me explain this subscripts. Sigma xx, here the first x denotes the plane on which it is acting. So as you know, a plane is defined by the unit normal, okay, the normal to that plane. So in this case, this plane, okay, the normal to that plane is along x axis. So the first subscript will be x, okay, because it is acting on the x plane, positive x plane, and the second subscript denotes the direction in which the stress is acting. So it is acting in the positive x direction, and if the stress is acting on a positive x plane in the positive x direction, so it is a positive stress. So similarly on the negative x plane, in the negative x direction, sigma xx is acting. Alright. Similarly all the other stress components has been shown. So here as you see, sigma yx, so it is acting on the y plane because normal to this plane is along positive y plane. So this is acting on the positive y plane, and so the first subscript is y and the second one is x, so that x denotes that it is acting in the x direction. So now if we consider the equilibrium of this elemental area, okay, in the x and y direction separately. Alright. So first we will consider the equilibrium in the x direction. So we will consider all the forces that is acting in the x direction. So we will look at all the stress components of which the second subscript is x. So we will look at sigma xx. Alright. We will consider sigma yx here. Similarly we will consider sigma xx here and the sigma yx here. So these are the four stress components that are acting in the x direction. Their signs are opposite. So and then if we write the equilibrium, okay, in the x direction, force equilibrium in the x direction, so we will get the first differential equation as delta x delta y tends to 0. Alright. So just note that the second subscript here are all x, and particularly the body force is also acting in the x direction. So this is corresponding to summation of fx is equal to 0 as delta x delta y tends to 0. Alright. Similarly if we consider the equilibrium, force equilibrium of the body in the y direction, so we will get the second equation as delta x delta y tends to 0. So these are the differential equations that has to be satisfied at every point of the body. Alright. And the right hand side is 0 because we are considering the static case, okay, otherwise we have to add the mass times acceleration term. Alright. So the same set of equations has been rewritten, okay, in the short form like this. So as I see that symmetric gradient operator has been transposed. Alright. So here we have del of del x sigma xx, del of del y sigma xy plus bx is equal to 0. So that is the first equation, that is this one. Alright. Similarly we can get the second equation from the second row. Alright. So as I said, this is basically the symmetric gradient operator and the transpose of it. Alright. This we are referring as stress vector sigma bar. containing sigma xx, sigma yy and sigma xy. This we are referring as a vector b bar that contains the body force bx and by in x and y direction respectively. So, this finally is rewritten as del S transpose sigma bar plus b bar is equal to 0. Alright. So, this is basically the equation that we are going to solve. Now, here we are talking about the constitutive relation. So, this basically relates the kinematic part with the corresponding kinetic part, that is the strain that is based on the deformation of the body is related to something that is keeping the body in equilibrium, the stresses. Alright. So, the D is basically depending on the material. Alright. So, D here depends on the material. Now, if we talk about the general case where we have 6 independent stress components in this stress vector and 6 independent strain components in strain vector, in that case D will have, say, D will be a matrix of size 6 by 6, and in that case we will be having 36 terms. But if we consider the all the symmetries and all, and particularly for linear elastic isotropic material, we will have only 2 independent property of the material, that is Young's modulus and the Poisson's ratio, that will govern D. Alright. But in the 2 dimensional case, the stress that we are considering, the stress vector has sigma xx, sigma xy and sigma yy, whereas epsilon has epsilon xx, epsilon xy and epsilon yy. So, in that case the structure of D depends on the model. Alright. So, if we look for an application where the domain is thin, okay, that is the thickness of the domain in the z direction is small compared to the other dimension in the xy plane, alright, and all the forces acting on the domain are in the xy plane, then we can safely assume that sigma zz, sigma xz and sigma yz as 0. Alright. So, that we term as plane stress case, alright, because all the stress components acting in the z direction are assumed to be 0, but that does not make epsilon zz as 0, alright. In that case epsilon zz is not equal to 0, and we can in fact calculate it based on the other strain components. Okay. Now, so if I talk about the plane stress case, so D appears to be like this, alright, which contains the Young's modulus E and the Poisson's ratio nu, alright. Now, in other cases where the material is thick, okay, or it is thicker in the z direction compared to the other dimension in the xy plane, then in that case we assume epsilon zz is equal to epsilon xz is equal to epsilon yz as 0, alright, fine, and in that case D appears as this. So, that we call as plane strain case. Now, in the plane strain case, the sigma z is not 0, alright. So, this we have already seen in the basic solid mechanics, and one more point to be noted here is particularly because of this term, okay, as nu approaches 0.5 or half, alright, D becomes very large, particularly if nu is half, then the D becomes infinity. So, in that case the solution or methodology for this kind of problem, okay, which particularly deals with incompressible material, is not very simple, okay, and it requires a special treatment. So, that we will not be talking about in this course, okay, rather we will talk about the general thing, but this you keep in mind that for incompressible material some special treatment is required, particularly under consideration of plane strain. So, now all the ingredients are ready. So, let us now define the boundary value problem. Alright. So, in a 2-dimensional domain, in this case I have shown an arbitrary shaped domain, okay, omega, okay, which is enclosed by a boundary, okay, as shown, in this figure, and so this domain is in the xy plane. Okay, in the thickness direction, that is in the z direction, we will assume the thickness to be 1, and this part of the boundary we will assume as it is constrained. It constrained means in this case the displacement is defined, alright. So, it cannot move maybe in the x and y direction in this portion of the boundary. So, this boundary we will term as Dirichlet boundary, because as we said earlier, so here I am defining this part of the boundary we will define as del omega d, alright. That is basically representing the Dirichlet boundary, okay, where the field variable, that is the displacement, is specified. In the other part of the boundary where the forces are specified, alright. So, here as you see in this part of the boundary there is no force, this part of the boundary some traction is specified, this portion of the boundary some traction is specified, other portion again that there is no force, alright. So, the entire boundary apart from this Dirichlet boundary will refer as del omega n. So, that refers to the Neumann boundary. So, where the forces or tractions are not applied, so those are basically corresponds to homogeneous Neumann boundary, alright, and wherever it is specified it is non-homogeneous part, but the whole boundary of will refer as del omega n. Now, and it is obvious that the whole boundary is actually comprising of the Dirichlet boundary and the Neumann boundary, and as I said earlier, these two boundaries cannot overlap. So, you cannot specify displacement as well as force at a given point, alright. So, now what are the things that we need to satisfy? First of all, we have to satisfy the governing differential equation, that is the equilibrium equation, which is applicable at every point, each and every point on the domain. Then we have to satisfy the displacement boundary condition that is specified on the Dirichlet boundary part, and then we have to satisfy the Neumann boundary condition also. So, what is this expression? Let me elaborate. So, if we take a very small element along this boundary, say of length ds, okay, and if I exaggerate it here, okay, so this length is ds, alright. The s corresponding x component is dx and the corresponding y component is referred as dy. The normal vector to this small element ds is defined as the unit vector n, alright. Now, so what is traction? Traction is basically actually one kind of a stress itself, but this is applied externally, alright. So, it is in this case, since the thickness is 1, so T is basically some kind of force like Newton per meter. So, per unit length along the boundary, the amount of force that is applied, because in the other direction, the thickness direction, we are assuming that it is 1, alright. So, now if we draw the all these stresses, so first of all this is in the so it is acting in the, so this is n, and so somehow this is the traction that is acting, so this is T, okay, vector, and so this is my x axis, okay, this is x axis, this is y axis parallel to x and y axis. So, now if I draw the stress component, because these are the internal surfaces, the forces acting on this are basically because of the stresses. So, this is x plane, negative x plane. So, I will draw this as sigma xx. This is negative y plane. So, this is sigma yy here, and the corresponding shear stresses are sigma xy, alright. So, this small element is in equilibrium under these three set of forces, okay, acting on these three planes. So one is T, another is the stress, you can say vector acting on this x plane, and these two vectors acting on the y plane. Alright. So now if I consider the equilibrium of this small element, alright, along x and y direction, so what we get? We get Tx is equal to sigma xx nx plus sigma xy ny, and then in the y direction we get Ty as sigma xy nx plus sigma yy ny. Right. So you just write equilibrium in x and y direction, taking the components of T as Tx and Ty. So we are using the component of T as Tx and Ty. Alright. So you will get these two set of equations. Alright. Now, so now here I have used nx and ny. What is nx and ny? So nx and ny are basically the component of the unit vector n along x and y direction. Alright. So this I can rewrite as the t vector, okay. So there is no need to use this sign. So t vector comprising Tx Ty as sigma xx sigma xy sigma xy sigma yy, okay, into nx ny. Alright, or you can say this has been written as the sigma, okay. Just note down that this is not sigma bar, okay, it has been written in bold. So it means this this in the tensor form, this is the sigma, so this is written in bold times n, unit vector n. So that is what has been specified on the Neumann boundary. Alright. So in the Neumann boundary part, so what is specified is Tx and Ty at every point on the boundary. Alright. So if it is not specified, maybe T will be specified. So in that case we will find out the component along x and y direction, that we have to do. Alright. So now let us go ahead and see how this partial differential equation along with these two set of boundary conditions can be satisfied, okay, using this method. So what we did in the earlier problem, like the steady state heat conduction problem, we said that we will first find out the residue from the governing partial differential equation. So where from we get the residue? So we will first assume, in this case our primary variable is the displacement, okay, which has two component ux and uy. So at every point in the domain we have two unknowns, that is sigma x, ux, uy. Now, so if we assume a trial function uh, okay, and replace in the strain displacement relation, we will obtain the strain. Alright. So that is an approximate strain. So that if we replace in the constitutive relation, then we will get the approximate stress. Alright. So now this stress component, if we replace in the governing differential equations, alright, so obviously the left hand side will not be equal to 0 at all the points in the domain, okay. So that part, okay, we will term as residue. Now since we have two equations, so the residue of each of these equations are named as Rx and Ry, okay. So that constitutes the residue vector R bar, okay. So this is the residue from the first equation, this is the residue from the second equation. So here basically as it is we have written the whole thing, but only the thing is u has been substituted, okay, with uh, okay, an approximate u that has been substituted in this, and then we got the residue. Now this has been rewritten, okay, for convenience in this form, okay. Now here you see this sigma x bar is this vector, I have written it here. So that sigma x bar are the stress components that is acting on the x plane. So that is sigma xx and sigma xy. So that is acting on the x plane. So that is defined as the sigma x bar, the vector. Okay. Here this is sigma y bar, that comprises of the stresses that are acting on the y plane. You just note here that we have already replaced sigma yx as sigma xy, both in the equilibrium equation and as well as here. This is because we have seen in the moment equilibrium that if there is no body moment acting on the body, then sigma xy is equal to sigma yx. Alright. So this we have obtained from the moment equilibrium. So now this sigma y vector, okay, and with the sigma x vector, we have represented these two residue as del dot sigma x bar, del dot sigma y bar. Let us see what is del. In this case, del bar is the gradient. So del bar has two components, del of del x, del of del y. So if I take a dot product of, so this has two component, del of del x, del of del y. So if I take a dot product of del with sigma bar, then what I get? We get del of del x sigma x plus del of del y sigma y. So these are the first two terms. So that is what has been written here, and along with that bx will be there. Similarly, from here we are getting del of del x sigma xy plus del of del y sigma yy. That is the term here. Alright. So this is written as divergence of the stress vector acting on the x plane. That is the first term here, and the second term divergence of the stress vector acting on the y plane. Alright. So once we have the residue, then what we do? We multiply with the residue an arbitrary function w. Now in this case we have two residues, alright, two components rx and ry. So here we will assume two weights wx and wy. So we will have an weight vector that comprises of wx and wy. So with the residue vector r bar, we take a dot product with w bar. So that means rx into wx plus ry into wy integrated over the whole domain is equal to 0. Alright. So this means that the weighted average of the residue on the domain is equal to 0. Now since w is arbitrary, it means w is can be any function, w can be any function, w has, it can be polynomial, it can be cubic quadratic function, it can be trigonometric function, it can be exponential functions, alright. So or maybe even step function or delta function. So under all possible choices of w, if this weighted average of residue is 0, so it means that the residue itself is 0. So it means that the equilibrium equations are satisfied. So that is what is we have obtained from the weighted residual method. Now what we do? Now we replace this residue rx and ry. Okay. So what we get? Del dot sigma x bar into wx, that we obtained from the first term in the first equilibrium equation, and the first term in the second equilibrium equation we got del dot sigma y into wy, alright, dA, and the other terms will be bx into wx and by into wy. So this part is like b dot w, alright. Now if we look at these terms, del dot sigma wx, so how we can write it? So we will write del dot sigma x is into wx, okay, as del dot sigma x into wx, okay, because wx is a scalar function here. So we will write del dot sigma is a vector, sigma x is a vector times a scalar function. So So del dot sigma bar x into wx minus del wx. So now it is a vector dot sigma x bar. Alright. Similarly, del dot sigma y bar into wy is equal to del dot sigma y wy minus del wy. So this is a vector now dot sigma y bar. Alright. So this we can write like this. So now this term and this term, you see, like this is a divergence of a vector field, that is sigma x bar into wx. Okay, this is a divergence of a vector field sigma y bar into wy. So these two terms if I take in one side, so what we get from here, so this will be coming as negative here, so that we will take in one side, so other two terms will be in the right hand side. So this if I write here, we get del wx, okay, dot sigma x bar plus del wy dot sigma y bar, okay, integration over area dA is equal to, we have this term and this term, okay. So that is del dot sigma x wx plus del dot sigma y wy, right, integration over a dA plus we have this term b dot w. So it is b dot w or w dot b, the same thing. Alright, it's fine. So now if I look at this term, what we can do, because this is a divergence of a vector field sigma bar, okay. So we will write this as the normal component of the vector field, okay, along the boundary we have to integrate. So if I use the Gauss divergence theorem, this term we are writing as sigma x, because this is the vector, so sigma x dot n, okay, the normal component of sigma bar x, okay, into wx, this is a scalar. So the second term will give us sigma y bar dot n, okay, into wy, integrated over the boundary of A. Alright. So this we are getting from the Gauss divergence theorem. So the divergence of the vector field sigma bar x into w, that is equal to the normal component of the vector field, okay, integrated along the boundary. Alright. So this is also we are getting. Now the rest of the term will be remaining as it is, so we are not touching these two terms. So this term if I expand, sigma x bar contains sigma xx, sigma xy, alright, dot n. So what is this one? The first term if I write, I get sigma xx nx plus sigma xy ny, alright, into wx. So this is this term. The second one, sigma yy comprises of sigma xy and sigma yy dot n. So this we are writing as sigma xy into nx plus sigma yy into ny into wy. Alright. So these are integrated over the boundary. Alright. And the last term remains as it is, that is w dot b integrated over a dA. It's fine. Now what is this term? This we have seen whenever the boundary Neumann boundary, at the Neumann boundary this is specified as Tx and this is same as Ty, alright. So finally what we are getting from this term, we are getting integration over boundary Tx, so we are getting Tx into Wx plus Ty into Wy ds, and the second term is over area W dot B dA, fine. And in the left hand side what we had del bar Wx dot sigma x, okay, and then here del bar Wy dot sigma bar y, alright, integration over the area D, it's fine. So this is what we get. So what we basically did, we first did the integration by parts, okay, in the first step, and then we made use of the Gauss divergence theorem, and when we end up with this equation, alright. So now one thing you just note that this we can again write as W dot T, because W has component Wx, Wy, T has component Tx and Ty. So this can be represented as W dot T, alright. Now this is done over the entire boundary del A. Now we know that the entire boundary, okay, can be written as the Dirichlet boundary and the Neumann boundary, okay. And you remember how we choose the weight function W? We said that the W is arbitrary except where the field variable is specified. So where the field variable U is specified, W is basically 0 there. So it means on the Dirichlet boundary W is 0. So it means this integration, okay, so this Wx and Wy will be 0 when we are integrating over the Dirichlet boundary. So this entire this integral over the Dirichlet boundary will become 0. So this I can directly write as the integration over only the Neumann boundary, alright. So now let us look at what we have done till now. So initially we started with the equilibrium equation, okay. If you remember here the strain has a derivative of displacement and the stress is some constant times the strain, and here the derivative of stress is present. So in the equilibrium equation actually we have the second derivative of displacement present. So it means that particularly this form from where we started, okay, from where we started, in order to have this integrand as defined, we need the first derivative of u as continuous. So we need the displacement to be C1 continuous, alright, because its derivative has to be continuous. So that the second derivative becomes defined and actually the integration is possible, alright. So this form we call as strong form, okay. We discussed this earlier as well. So this is the strong form, and the form that we just now derived here, if you see here we have only the first derivative of W sitting, and in the stresses we have first derivative of displacement sitting. So it means that U has to be only C0 continuous, means only the value of the U has to be continuous in order to have the integrand as defined. So this form we call as weak form, alright. So once we have defined this weak form, so what next? So what do? We first represent the trial function, that is UH, okay, with a set of basis functions. So we first discretize the domain into some triangular and or maybe quadrilateral element, and we define some approximation functions or basis functions, okay, element wise, and we represent this displacement as a linear combination of those basis functions or shape functions. Alright. So, with this weak form we will just try to simplify this weak form. So, first what we have done here is the left hand side as it is written, the right hand side we already discussed that this is W dot T, okay, integrated over the Neumann boundary, and the last term is B dot W that takes care of the body force B bar. Now, this term on the left hand side we are rewriting as this, okay. Now, this is the stress vector, that is sigma xx, sigma yy and sigma xy. Now, if you look at this sigma x bar, so it has two components, that is sigma xx and sigma xy. So, this is a column vector, and this gradient of W has two components, that is del W x del x, del W y del y. So, it has two components. So, now if we multiply them, then you will see that that is coming from the product of del W del x into sigma x xx plus del W x del x, sorry, this will be del W x del y. So, that will be del W x del y into sigma xy, alright. So, this into this plus this into this gives us the first term. Similarly, this term into sigma yy plus this term into sigma xy gives us the second term, alright. So, this has been rewritten in this form. Now, as you see, it has three components as del W x del x, del W y del y and the partial derivatives of this, okay, fine. Now, this you can see this is basically a strain vector because of the displacement as W, alright. So, if I consider W as a variation of u, or maybe in this case if I replace as virtual displacement, okay, then this vector is basically representing the strain because of the virtual displacement W, alright. So, it has three components. First of all, I have del W x del x, del W y del y and the other two components del W x del y plus del W y del x, okay. And since we represent this strain vector as a column vector, so here we have taken, this is a row vector, so we are writing as symmetric gradient of W transpose sigma. So, this is basically the symmetric gradient of, this is basically the symmetric gradient of W, alright, and the transpose of it because this is a row vector, alright, times the stress vector sigma bar, which is this guy, alright. Now, this stress sigma bar is because of the actual strain, okay, not because of the virtual strain. So, we are writing sigma bar making use of the constitutive relation as d times epsilon, and this epsilon is again written as symmetric gradient of u because u is the actual displacement. So, epsilon corresponds to the actual displacement u, alright. So, this corresponds to the virtual displacement, this strain corresponds to the actual displacement, and this represents the constitutive behavior of the material. So, the left hand side, the whole term is basically symmetric gradient of W transpose D into symmetric gradient of U. So, that is what is written here, okay. And in the right hand side we know W dot T, okay. So, that is written as W transpose T, and the third term is basically W dot P. So, this is basically the same weak form that is written in a convenient form, alright. So, now let us go ahead and discretize the domain. So, here as you see the domain has been discretized with quadrilateral element, we can do with the triangular element also. Now, in this case we have here 14 elements, okay. So, the blue number basically denotes the element number, and the red numbers denote the node numbers. So here we have 14 elements and total we have 21 nodes, alright, and in each element we have 4 nodes because it is a quadrilateral element. So now let us look at element 9. So if I look at element 9 and exaggerate it a little bit, okay, say it looks like something like this, okay. So this is element 9 and the nodes are 5, 6, 9 and 10. So these are the node numbers, alright. Alright. So now the purpose is to represent the displacement of a given element E, okay. So in this case we have taken the 9th element. Now what we have done first is in the weak form, alright. So we have left hand side we have integrated this term over a particular element AE, okay, and summed it up over the all the elements, okay. So this is same as whatever we got in the first slide in equation number 3. So this is over the entire area, okay. So this we have done it over a particular element and then summed it up over the whole element. Similarly the right hand side also has been written, okay. This is over the edges of a particular element E, okay, and then summed up over all the elements. So this summation sign is over the whole term, alright. Same thing also has been done for the third term as well, okay. So now we have to look into a particular element. So when I am looking at a particular element, I have to calculate the symmetric gradient of U and W. So first of all I have to represent U. So in a given element, say element 9, we have 4 nodes 5, 6, 9 and 10. Now in this case in each of the node we have 2 displacements, okay. Nodes 9 we have 2 displacement components, node 10 we have 2 displacement components, similarly in node 5, alright. So if I denote these nodes with the local number, say 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, because I am using a quadrilateral element with degree p equal to 1. So I have 4 nodes and each node we have 2 degree of freedom, means each of the degree of freedom denotes the displacement in x and y direction respectively. So along x at local node 1, so the displacement I am defining as alpha in the x direction at node 1 of element E, alright. Similarly alpha in y direction at node 1 for element E. So this one alpha in x direction at node 2 for element E. Similarly alpha x2 alpha y2 for element E, alpha x3 for element E, alpha y3 for element E. So this denotes alpha x4 for element E and alpha y4 for element E, alright. So now we can see here we have 8 unknowns, alright. So alpha x1, alpha x2, alpha x3, alpha x4, these 4 denotes the displacement of these 4 nodes in the x direction. So if I have to write ux in this element, so in this element ux will be alpha x1 e into n1 plus alpha x2 e into n2 plus alpha x3 into e n3 plus alpha x4 e into n4, alright. Similarly I will write uy as alpha y1 e into n1 plus alpha y2 e into n2 plus alpha y3 e into n3 plus alpha y4 e into n4, alright. So now you see we have used the same set of shape functions n1, n2, n3, n4, okay, to represent both y and x displacement. Only the degrees of freedom or these alphas, okay, that is different for each of them, alright. We can use different set of shape functions for x and y direction. but not in this kind of problems. Alright. So, for the timing we will stick to the usual process. So, we will use the same shape functions for both x and y displacement. So, this has been written here. So, as you see here these elements are taken as 0, just to take care that these alphas are not contributing to the x displacement. Alright. So, ux in element E is n1 times alpha x1, n2 times alpha x, it should be alpha x3, because we have numbered it as 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. So, you can say in the x and y direction it is numbered as this. So, you say this is alpha x1, alpha y1, alpha x2, alpha y2, alpha x3, alpha y3, alpha x4, alpha y4. Alright. So, ux is comprising of n1 times alpha x1, n2 times alpha x2, n3 times alpha x3 and n4 times alpha x4. Alright, because these terms are 0. Similarly, uy also takes care of that. Now, this matrix, okay, which is of size 2 by 8, we call it a shape function matrix. So, that is defined as NE. Alright. And this vector, which is basically comprising of these 8 unknowns for this particular element E, or in this case E is 9. So, for this particular element we have 8 unknowns, alright, 8 alphas. So, that vector is denoted as alpha u, because that represents the vector u bar. Okay. So, we got u bar as n times alpha u. Fine. So, once we are able to represent u as a linear combination of the shape functions, okay, that we already constructed earlier for this quadrilateral element with degree p equal to 1. Now, the next thing is to get their derivatives, because in the weak form we need their derivatives, okay, the symmetric gradient of the displacement. So, here the symmetric gradient of ue we already wrote earlier as this. Now, ux and uy are substituted as n times alpha. Okay. So, now if I multiply this, so the first thing is taking care of the derivatives of this shape function. So, it will be n1 comma x, n2 comma x, n3 comma x, n4 comma x. So, it basically del n1 del x, del n2 del x, del n3 del x and del n4 del x. Alright. Similarly, the second row is basically taking care of the derivative of the shape functions in the second row, okay, but with respect to y. Alright. Then the third term we have all the components. First it is with respect to y, the second term with respect to x, y with respect to x and so on. So, that is how we get this matrix. Now, this matrix is of size 3 by 8. Alright. So, this matrix is defined as B matrix. Okay. So, that relates strain with displacement. So, we call this as strain displacement matrix, and this alpha vector will remain as it is, because this is a constant vector. So, symmetric gradient u bar, okay, of a given element E we got as B times alpha. Alright. Now, what we will do? We need to represent W. Okay. So, if we follow the Galerkin approach, W will also be represented using the same shape functions. So, we will write W in the element E as the same set of shape functions, okay, the same shape function matrix times alpha W, okay, because these alphas has to be different, okay, alpha W E. Is that all right? Now, this will be of the same size, because we are representing W on the same element, okay, it will be of the same size. So, this will be the same shape function matrix, but this will be a separate vector containing the alphas corresponding to the W. Alright. So, this is what has been written here. Now, if I substitute W, okay, here, so we get the symmetric gradient of W as B times alpha W. Alright, it is the same thing, okay, only the thing is U has been substituted with W. So, we have obtained the symmetric gradients of u and w. Now we need to put them into the weak form.